I got home earlier than usual that Friday. Funny thing is, it wasn't planned. My buddy Jason canceled dinner last minute because his kid had a fever, and instead of K*ling time at a bar like I normally would, I decided to come home. Figured I'd surprise Haley. Maybe we'd get takeout, sit on the couch, and actually talk for once without the TV on or our phones in our hands. Just reconnect. I hadn't realized how badly I needed that until I pulled into our driveway and saw her car already there. She was supposed to be out with her friends. That was the plan. Some girl's night in the city, drinks at that rooftop place she likes. She even mentioned maybe staying over at Megan's if it got too late. But here she was, home. No lights on in the living room, no music playing, nothing to suggest she had company or was getting ready to leave. The house felt too still. I stepped inside. The front hallway was quiet, dim. No heels by the door, which was strange. Haley always kicked her shoes off the second she got home. I called out, but there was no answer. I shrugged off my jacket and walked toward the back of the house. That's when I noticed the bedroom door cracked open and the light spilling out across the hallway carpet. Something clenched in my gut. It wasn't one thing, it was a dozen little things layered on top of each other. The light on when it shouldn't be. The sound of water dripping in the distance. The faint smell of something unfamiliar, sharp and musky. Definitely cologne, not perfume. Not mine either. It hit me before I even stepped into the room, like walking into a scent trail someone left behind in a hurry. And then there were the wine glasses. 2 of them sat on the nightstand, both half finished. One of them, hers probably, was near her side of the bed. The other had a faint lipstick stain, deep crimson, not the soft nude shades Haley usually wore. Haley hadn't worn red lipstick in months. I know because I used to buy it for her, and she'd always say, too dramatic for daytime, too much effort. The bed was a mess. Sheets tangled like someone had flopped down or, worse, rolled around in them. I'm not a neat freak by any means, but we make the bed every morning. Or at least we used to. That day, clearly someone didn't care. I stood there staring, my mind trying to piece it together, trying to come up with a logical explanation that didn't involve the thing I was already starting to suspect. I was giving her the benefit of the doubt, clinging to it like a lifeline. Then I heard the water shut off. The bathroom door was mostly closed, steam curling out from underneath it. The drip, drip, drip of a towel on the tile echoed into the bedroom. When the door finally opened, Haley stepped out, wrapped in the pale pink robe I'd bought her last Christmas. Her hair was damp, clinging to her shoulders. She looked like she had just rinsed off. Not the full-body post-shower freshness, just enough to wash something away. "Oh," she said, startled but not surprised. "You're home." "Yeah, plans changed." I said it as casually as I could, but I could already feel the weight of suspicion pressing into my spine. "Figured I'd surprise you." She smiled, but it didn't touch her eyes. I wasn't feeling great. Headache. I didn't go out after all. I didn't say anything. "I had Rachel swing by for a bit, though," she continued quickly, adjusting the tie on her robe. "We had some wine, just caught up. She left maybe 15 minutes ago." My eyes drifted to the wine glasses again. She followed my gaze. "I should have rinsed those. Sorry. I wasn't expecting company." "Well, I mean, not you. I thought you were out." Everything about the way she moved, the way she talked, was too clean, too smooth, polished like a performance. Her voice didn't shake, not even once. And that was the biggest red flag of all. Because Haley wasn't good at lying. Not before. But now she was almost too good. I nodded slowly and said nothing. I could see her sizing me up, trying to read my reaction, maybe even thinking about what she had missed, what details she didn't cover. I watched her tuck her hair behind her ear, her nervous habit, except this time, it felt like a calculated move, like she was playing a role. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah." I lied. The scent in the room hadn't faded. If anything, it was clinging to everything. The air, the sheets, her. It wasn't something she wore. I knew all her fragrances. This one had a stronger base, almost woody, masculine. Definitely cologne. Maybe even something expensive. Not mine. "You sure?" She pushed again, her tone too light. I just nodded. I didn't want to start a fight, not with nothing solid. And yet, it was already solid in my gut. My instincts had kicked in the moment I walked through the door. That sense you get when something in your world shifts a few inches off its axis and nothing sits right after. You might not see the full picture, but you know it's there. She turned and walked to the closet, pretending to search for pajamas or a clean towel, some excuse to move, to fill the silence. I watched her out of the corner of my eye. Her posture was too casual. That robe hung just a little too perfectly, like she'd adjusted it before stepping out of the bathroom. "Rachel, say anything interesting?" I asked, testing her. She paused. Just a beat too long. Not really. Same stuff, work, her boyfriend. She's thinking about getting a dog." That felt rehearsed. Rachel didn't have a boyfriend. Not unless something changed in the last few days. Haley knew I talked to Rachel's brother sometimes. She knew I could ask and verify. So either she was sloppy with her lie, or she was counting on me not to follow up. I didn't say anything else. Just let her talk. Let her fill the room with noise. Let her think I was buying it. She poured herself a fresh glass of water, walked past me, and kissed me on the cheek. I didn't flinch, but something in me recoiled. Couldn't help it. She noticed. Her hand lingered a moment too long, then pulled away. "You're quiet," she said. "Just tired," I replied. That was the end of it. She left the bedroom first, heading downstairs to start laundry or scroll her phone or send a text. Who knows? I stayed behind, standing in the same spot, surrounded by a smell that didn't belong to me, looking at the wine glass that hadn't been touched by her lips, staring at our bed like it had turned into a crime scene. And that's the moment I knew. She wasn't alone that night. Not for a second. Whatever story she told me about Rachel was just that. A story. A cover. A performance crafted in the 10 seconds it took her to hear the front door open, rinse her body off in a panic, and walk out of the bathroom like nothing had happened. I didn't argue. Didn't accuse. That's not who I am. I've always believed that if someone's gonna lie to your face, they'll lie about anything. And if I caught her in the act, it wasn't going to be with speculation. But still, that moment stayed with me, because everything about it was too clean, too timed, too intentional. I knew my marriage didn't fall apart that night, but it definitely shifted. Something cracked, subtle but irreversible. The kind of crack that spreads quietly under the surface, where no one else can see it, but you feel it every second after. And from that moment on, I couldn't unsee what I saw, or unfeel what I felt, because the scent in that room, it wasn't hers. It wasn't mine. It was someone else's. After that night, I started noticing everything. Not just the big things, the obvious lies or strange behavior, but the little things, the stuff I'd probably ignored before or written off as nothing. Haley had changed, and once that crack appeared in my trust, I couldn't stop seeing the fractures spiderwebbing out across the rest of our life. Started with her phone. We used to be casual about our phones. Left them face up on the counter, responded to texts openly, even read each other's messages from across the room if one of us was busy. But that shifted slowly, subtly, like a door that doesn't slam shut but clicks closed behind you. Her phone never left her hand anymore. If she wasn't holding it, it was upside down, silenced, always locked. I didn't even notice when she changed the password. I only realized it had happened when I picked it up by reflex one morning to check the time, and the screen prompted me with a code I didn't know. She laughed and brushed it off like it was no big deal. "Work stuff," she said. "Some client guidelines about privacy." It didn't feel like work stuff, especially not when she started texting late into the night, her screen lighting up the dark bedroom like a strobe. I'd glance over and she'd angle the screen away from me. Once I asked who it was and she said Megan, but I remembered Megan being on a trip that week. It was a small slip and I didn't push, but it sat with me. The habits came next. Friday movie nights were once our thing. No matter how busy life got, we carved that space out. We'd order takeout, watch a thriller or some dumb comedy, and just be together. But now she always had somewhere to be. Some girl thing, a pop-up art gallery, a meetup for creatives. Every week it was something new, and always conveniently untrackable. Sundays used to be slow breakfasts and catching up on life. But now she slept in, or left early, or sat across from me scrolling through her phone while pretending to listen. The warmth in our conversations started to flicker out like a candle running low. She left her office job, too. That one hit me hard. She'd always worked in marketing for a local firm. Not glamorous, but she liked it. Or at least she used to. Then one day she came home and said she quit. Just like that. "I need more freedom," she told me over coffee one morning. "I want to explore freelance stuff. Work from cafes. Get inspired again." Inspired? I didn't know she felt uninspired. She never said anything about being unhappy at work. And while part of me wanted to support her, another part felt blindsided. Something didn't add up. She started dressing differently, too. I know that sounds small, but when you've been with someone for years, you notice these things. Haley had always been stylish, but lately her wardrobe had shifted. Bold colors, tighter cuts, heels more often than flats. She used to joke about trying too hard when she'd see influencers online, but now it was like she was morphing into one. There was a night about 2 weeks after I came home early, the night that cracked everything open a little wider. She told me she was staying at Megan's again. Girls' night, wine, sleepover. Nothing new. But then I ran into Megan by accident at a grocery store 2 days later. She greeted me like nothing was weird. We chatted for a bit, and I asked how her weekend went. "Oh," she said. "I was in Portland visiting my sister. Got back Sunday." I didn't flinch. I didn't show anything. I smiled and nodded, made some dumb joke about airport food, and walked away like I hadn't just had the floor pulled out from under me. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, listening to Haley's even breathing next to me. I didn't ask her about it. I didn't need to. The facts were sitting right there, cold and undeniable. She hadn't been at Megan's. She hadn't even tried to coordinate the lie properly. She was slipping. But even before that, the signs were there. I could see them now, like watching a movie again after knowing the twist. There was the night she came home past 3 a.m. That one burned into my memory. I texted her twice that night, just to check in. No response. She finally walked through the door looking exhausted and slightly disoriented. Her hair tousled and makeup faintly smeared like she'd wiped it off in a hurry. She mumbled something about crashing at Rachel's after too many drinks. I asked if everything was okay, and she waved it off with a casual smile. "Of course," she said. "We just lost track of time. Sorry, babe." But her tone didn't match her eyes. Her voice was flat, too careful. And when I hugged her goodnight, she stiffened just slightly before leaning in. Then there was her laptop. It used to be our shared device, open on the kitchen counter, used for meal planning, budgeting, watching Netflix together. But suddenly it became her work laptop, password protected and rarely left in sight. One night, I joked that she must be running a secret business on the side. She laughed, but it was forced. Another time, I brought up the idea of a weekend trip. Just us. A reset. We hadn't gone anywhere in months, and I thought maybe it would help. She hesitated, eyes flicking toward her phone like she was checking a mental calendar. "I have a lot of projects coming up," she said. "Can we maybe plan something later in the season?" We didn't. We never did. And honestly, I stopped trying after a while. Every gesture felt one-sided. Every suggestion was met with a delay, a soft rejection, a vague excuse. I started to feel like a roommate rather than a husband. There was one night, it sticks with me, not for what happened, but for what didn't. We were sitting on opposite ends of the couch, TV playing some background noise neither of us was really watching. I looked over at her, wanting to say something, anything, but I couldn't find the words. She was smiling at her phone, typing quickly, then deleting, then typing again. She looked up, caught me watching her, and smiled. "What?" she asked. "Nothing," I said, forcing a smile back. And in that moment, I felt like a stranger in my own marriage. Like she had already left the room long before her body would catch up. I began checking details, dates, schedules, slivers of conversations. It all formed a pattern, one I didn't want to see, but couldn't unsee. The inconsistencies weren't isolated. They were connected. They weren't mistakes. They were strategies. Haley had created an entirely different rhythm to her life, and I was no longer a part of it. Not really. I was the background, a prop to complete the illusion. The trusted husband, the stability she could lie to without confrontation. And maybe that was the worst part. She didn't even seem scared to get caught. Like she knew I wouldn't explode or accuse or chase her down. She knew I was calm, measured, the kind of man who'd give her rope, the kind of man who wouldn't scream, but would stare into silence until the truth came out on its own. But she underestimated me, because while she built a second life in the shadows, I had started to pull mine into the light, piece by piece. She didn't know it yet, but I had already started making backups of things. Financials, messages, photos, quiet precautions. I didn't need her to admit anything. I just needed to see it for myself. That seed of doubt from that Friday night, it had grown into a tree with roots digging into everything I thought was solid. And now I wasn't guessing anymore. I was preparing. The thing about suspicion is that it never stays still. Once it's there, it doesn't just sit quietly and wait. It spreads. It mutates. It changes how you see everything, even the most mundane parts of life. And once you've seen enough, all you're really waiting for is confirmation. I wasn't looking to catch Haley red-handed. Not exactly. I wasn't hoping to walk in on some dramatic scene. I didn't want that kind of movie moment. What I wanted deep down was something I could hold. A truth I didn't have to guess at. I was done connecting dots in the dark. I needed the lights on. That moment came on a Wednesday. Rainy, slow, gray. The kind of day where everything feels like it's holding its breath. Haley was home, but getting ready to go out again. Some creative networking night at a local art bar. I didn't ask questions. I just nodded like usual and said, "Have fun." She left around 6:30. By 6:35, I noticed her laptop still open on the kitchen table. She almost never left it out anymore, and definitely not unlocked. But she had, maybe by accident, maybe because she was rushing. I stood there for a second, frozen, staring at the screen. It was open to a cloud folder. Something like a synced album. No title. Just a list of files with generic names, IMG_1427, VID_2093, that kind of thing. I didn't plan to click. I really didn't. But then again, I hadn't planned any of this. Not the suspicion. Not the distance. Not the collapse of my marriage under my feet. And in that moment, with my heart doing double time in my chest, I clicked. The first photo was harmless. A blurry selfie. Haley at a coffee shop. But the background wasn't familiar. The next photo hit harder. It was Haley, in a hotel room. I recognized the shirt she was wearing. It was mine. One of my old flannels, slightly oversized on her. I used to love seeing her in it. But in this photo, she wasn't alone. She was sitting next to a man, her legs tucked under her, his arm draped casually behind her shoulders. Her hand rested on his chest. They were laughing, close, comfortable. The timestamp on the image made my throat go dry. It was from the same weekend she claimed to be at a girls' retreat in the mountains. I clicked through the rest with the kind of numbness you get after an injury, when you know something's broken, but you can't feel it yet. A series of photos told a story I never wanted to see. Her leaning into him at dinner, them walking through a park. A boomerang of her playfully throwing popcorn at him on a hotel bed. And then the video. That one changed everything. She had filmed it herself, judging by the shaky camera and the way her laughter echoed in the background. It was evening, and they were on a balcony somewhere high up, overlooking city lights. The man, mid-30s, tall, dark hair, smug confidence radiating off him, was holding a guitar, singing something slow and off-key but clearly meant for her. At the end, he reached toward the phone, laughing. Her voice, soft and playful, said, "Okay, okay, stop, you're gonna make me cry." I stared at the screen, at the pause symbol, at the blurred city lights frozen in place. And I felt something give way inside me. This wasn't emotional distance anymore. This wasn't suspicion. This wasn't a miscommunication or a phase or a misunderstanding. This was betrayal. Clear. Documented. Undeniable. She had built a separate life, and now I had the receipts. I sat down at the kitchen table, still staring at the screen, unsure what I was supposed to feel. Anger, obviously, but also, strangely, relief. The kind that comes when something terrible stops being vague and finally becomes concrete. The monster in the dark had a face now. It had Haley's laugh. It had hotel timestamps. It had my shirt, twisted into someone else's memory. I copied the folder, transferred everything to a flash drive I kept in my desk drawer. Then I closed the laptop, quietly, like I was afraid it would wake up and scream. When she came home that night, she looked happy. Genuinely happy. I watched her closely. She gave me a kiss on the forehead, asked if I had eaten, and launched into a story about some illustrator she met who might want to collaborate on a mural project. I nodded. I smiled where I was supposed to, and inside, I was somewhere else entirely. That night, after she fell asleep, I stood in the doorway of our bedroom and just looked at her. Not in a creepy way. Not like I was about to do something dramatic. I just looked, because the woman sleeping in front of me wasn't the person I married. She had her face, her hair, her voice, but something else lived underneath it now. A secret self. A version I didn't know, who smiled at strangers in dim hotel rooms, who sang along with someone else's off-key guitar. It was like the version of Haley I loved had packed up and moved out, and this one was just pretending. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't wake her up and demand answers. I just closed the door softly and sat on the couch until the sun came up. The next few days passed in slow motion. I stopped trying to pretend. I wasn't cold to her, but I wasn't warm either. Just neutral. I needed time to plan. I needed to find my balance before I made my move. I called my cousin Matt in Colorado and asked if I could stay with him for a bit. He didn't ask many questions, just said yes. I started gathering my essentials. Passport, social security card, bank documents. I backed up our financial records. I looked into closing joint accounts. I even started the process of separating our phone plans. All of it quietly, systematically. No explosions. No shouting matches. Just quiet exits. One thread at a time. She didn't notice. Or maybe she did, but thought she still had control. That's the thing about lies. They give you the illusion of power, right until the moment the truth steps in and flips the table. 3 days after I found the folder, I stood in the kitchen again. The same spot, same hour, and I took off my wedding ring, set it gently on the counter, and walked out. No goodbye, no letter, just absence. Clean and deliberate. I'd already left a text message scheduled to send that morning. Nothing dramatic. Just enough to make my point clear. You don't need to explain anything. I know. I saw everything. I'm leaving. Please don't contact me. I didn't block her. I didn't call her names. I didn't seek revenge. I just chose myself. By noon, I was on the road, my bag in the passenger seat, the city disappearing behind me. I didn't feel free yet. I didn't feel healed. But I felt unstuck. And that was enough. Because the proof had shattered everything. And sometimes, destruction is the only way out. I didn't slam the door. I didn't leave a trail of broken picture frames or scream curses into the void. I didn't even write a long letter explaining why I left. There was no cinematic meltdown. No scene that she could twist later into a story about me being too emotional or unreasonable. I just left. I walked out of the house we built, the rooms we painted together, the kitchen we danced in once at 2 a.m. After too much wine and not enough sleep, I left it all behind, not out of cowardice, but out of clarity. Because when someone sets fire to your home from the inside, there's not much point in fighting to stay. The morning I left, the sun was just rising. I packed while she slept. Every sound felt too loud. Drawers opening, zippers pulling, the faint creak of floorboards under my shoes. I half expected her to stir, to wake up and catch me mid-exit like in some movie. But she didn't. She slept through it. Maybe that was metaphor enough. The ring was the last thing. I slid it off my finger, looked at it for a second, and placed it gently on the kitchen counter next to her half-used notebook and a bowl of dried lavender she never remembered to replace. For some reason, I remember how cold the counter felt under my hand. Strange how little details stick in your mind during big moments. That was it. I walked out without looking back. I had already booked a one-way flight to Colorado 2 nights before. My cousin Matt offered me his spare room before I even finished the sentence. He didn't ask for the full story, just said, "Come, I got you." The Uber ride to the airport felt like a funeral procession I hadn't dressed for. I stared out the window while the driver made small talk I barely heard. Everything outside looked sharper somehow. Trees, traffic lights, even the cracked sidewalk leading out of our neighborhood. Like leaving had tuned my vision, made things more vivid. I kept thinking, she won't believe I'm actually gone. Because Haley was used to winning. She was used to spinning the truth, used to that soft manipulation that worked so well on people who wanted to believe the best of her. And for years I did. I believed her even when things didn't quite add up. I gave her benefit after benefit, rope after rope. She thought I'd stay. She probably thought I'd yell, cry, confront her, and then eventually forgive her. That I'd swallow it the way she swallowed her own excuses. That I'd break, then bend, then come crawling back because love is supposed to be stronger than betrayal, right? But no, not this time. I arrived in Colorado that afternoon. The air felt different, thinner maybe, or maybe I was just breathing deeper than I had in months. Matt met me at the airport with a half hug and a, "You look like hell, man," followed by a six-pack in the passenger seat of his truck. "You want to talk about it?" he asked once we were on the road. "Eventually," I said. "Not today." He nodded. "Good. You don't have to." His place was simple, 2 bedrooms, no nonsense. I set my bag down in the spare room and stared at the blank walls for a long time. The quiet was deafening. No footsteps overhead. No phone buzzing with excuses. No perfume lingering in the air. For the first time in what felt like forever, I wasn't waiting for the other shoe to drop. I spent the first week in a kind of fog. Walks in the morning. Long showers. Coffee I actually tasted instead of rushing through. I stayed off social media. Turned off read receipts. Ignored every unknown number that popped up. I knew some of them had to be her. I didn't care. What would she even say? Sorry? Sorry I lied. Evan. Sorry I said I was at a retreat when I was really wearing your shirt in a stranger's hotel room. Sorry I planned a life outside of ours while you were making grocery lists and paying bills and picking up her dry cleaning. No apology would land. Not after what I saw. And honestly, I wasn't angry as much as I was empty. Like someone had hollowed me out while I was still walking and talking and pretending to be okay. The betrayal didn't hit like a slap. It hit like a slow illness. Days of symptoms. Weeks of silence. Then finally a diagnosis. She was gone long before I ever packed a bag. People think leaving is the hard part. It's not. The hard part is the staying that leads up to it. Staying through the lies. The distance. The sense that something's wrong but not being able to name it. The slow erosion of trust until all that's left is suspicion and silence. Leaving was easy, quiet, controlled, clean. I did all the logistics in a few days. Closed our joint accounts. Had my name removed from the lease. I'd handled the legal side quietly while she was distracted. Changed my emergency contact. Forwarded my mail to Matt's place. Canceled the shared Spotify plan. Called my bank and made sure she didn't have access to anything I missed. Every task was a brick in the wall between us. I didn't leave a key behind. Just the ring. She'd figure the rest out. About a week later, I got a message from her. Then 3 more. Then a phone call. I didn't pick up. I let them stack up like unread mail. I didn't need to open any of them to know what was inside. The first wave is always confusion. Then panic. Then bargaining. And I wasn't interested in any of it. Matt never asked for details. He just handed me a beer at the end of the day, and we'd sit on the porch watching the sun dip behind the mountains like we were both too tired to speak. "You staying for good?" he asked one night. "Don't know yet. You're not going back, right?" "No," I said. "I'm not going back." That was the first time I said it out loud. Felt solid. final. I started to feel things again after a few more days. Anger, yeah. Sadness too. But more than that, I felt something I hadn't in months. Clarity. I could see how much I'd tolerated. How many times I'd rationalized things that didn't make sense. How I tried to make space for a person who wasn't interested in staying. I'd bent myself backwards, trying to be easy to love. But Haley didn't want love. She wanted freedom. Or the illusion of it. A kind of life that looked good on Instagram and felt thrilling in hotel sheets but never required her to be accountable for anything real. She wanted the attention without the commitment, the admiration without the effort. And she got it. But she lost something else in the process. She lost me, the man who stayed up with her when she had migraines. The one who made her breakfast every Sunday even when she barely touched it. The one who waited up when she went out with friends and came back smelling like another man's cologne. She traded a foundation for fireworks, a steady home for fleeting chemistry. I wasn't going to try and compete with that. I wasn't going to play detective anymore. I wasn't going to unpack her justifications or analyze her half-truths or sit through another explanation that unraveled the moment she opened her mouth. She could have the life she wanted, because I had started building mine. Somewhere quiet, somewhere honest, somewhere far away from the lies she mistook for freedom. And I didn't need her to understand it. I just needed her to know I was gone. I didn't expect her to fall apart. Honestly, I thought she'd land on her feet. Haley always did. She was the kind of woman who walked into a room like it owed her something. Charming, magnetic, in control. For a while, I even admired that about her. But it turned out her confidence was smoke. Thin, pretty, easy to breathe in if you didn't know better. Still, I figured she'd move on. Slide into someone else's life like she slid out of mine. She had the head start, after all. She'd already rehearsed her exit while I was still packing lunches and paying bills. But it didn't happen that way. Not even close. The first few weeks after I left, she went quiet. Too quiet. I ignored the initial wave of messages. The "where are you?" texts. The "we need to talk" voicemails. The "I made a mistake" emails. I didn't respond to any of it. Not because I wanted to punish her, but because I knew any answer, any word, would open the door she had already burned down. I wasn't interested in a conversation about why she deserved forgiveness. I wasn't interested in hearing her rewrite the narrative to make it sound mutual, or accidental, or complicated. I was done. But I kept tabs on her from a distance. Not obsessively, just enough to know where things stood. A mutual friend, Rob, texted me one day out of the blue. "Yo, just heard what happened. You good?" I told him I was. He waited a beat before sending another one. "I ran into Haley the other day. She's not doing great, man." I didn't reply, but the curiosity lingered. From what I gathered over time, things unraveled fast. Faster than even I expected. The guy from the photos? The one from the balcony serenade and the hotel snapsh *TS? He was gone. Disappeared. Not in a tragic, dramatic way, just uninterested. I don't know if she expected him to catch her when she jumped, but he didn't. She bet on a fantasy and ended up face-first on concrete. She'd cleared a space for him in her life. Kicked me out emotionally and then literally. And when it came time for him to step in and fill that void, he ghosted her. Poof. Just like that. No more rooftop guitar solos. No more hotel sheets. Just silence. I almost felt bad for her. Almost. Because I knew what she was feeling. That hollow panic when you realize the thing you wanted doesn't want you back. The freefall. The aftermath. I lived it for months while she was busy with her distractions. I crawled through it alone while she was wrapped up in some illusion of chemistry and destiny. Now it was her turn. And she was doing it without me. Her friends started disappearing, too. The ones she used to post selfies with during girls' nights. Clinking glasses and smiling like their lives were bite-sized movie trailers. I used to think she leaned on them when things were rough between us. Turns out they were fair-weather fixtures. They drifted away the second things stopped being fun. No one wants to be friends with a fallout zone. It wasn't long before she realized she couldn't afford the apartment on her own. I'd taken my name off the lease, closed our shared checking account, rerouted the auto payments she never noticed I was handling. I guess she thought everything would keep running like usual, that she'd keep the life, lose the husband, and still come out on top. She didn't. Rent came due. So did the car payment. So did the credit card she'd used for weekend trips and boutique shopping therapy. And the life she thought she deserved, the one she chose when she walked away from us, came crashing down faster than she could blame it on anyone else. I heard she tried to pick up more freelance work. Design gigs, copywriting. But without a network, and with her reputation slipping through gossip channels faster than she could control, the offers dried up. She started reaching out to people she hadn't talked to in years. Even Rob told me she messaged him at 2 a.m. one night asking for help networking. He didn't answer. She posted a vague story a couple weeks later, some black and white quote about growth and mistakes. Something like, "Sometimes the hardest person to forgive is yourself." I rolled my eyes, not because people can't change, but because that wasn't growth. That was damage control disguised as enlightenment. She wasn't reflecting. She was trying to get sympathy. And then the messages to me started again. Not the angry ones. Not the defensive ones. Those came first, back when she still thought she could spin the story. No, these were different. Softer. Hesitant. Full of that familiar Haley tone I hadn't heard in a long time. The kind she used when she was nervous she'd gone too far and wasn't sure how to reel it back. "I know I don't deserve it, but I miss you. Can we just talk? Even once? You were right about everything." I read them, but I didn't reply. And then came the voicemail that caught me off guard. It was short, barely 30 seconds, but the weight in her voice was unmistakable. She sounded small, not in volume, in presence, like someone who had finally run out of rope. I don't even know why I'm calling. I guess I thought maybe if you heard my voice, you'd believe me when I say I'm sorry. I messed everything up, Evan, and I can't fix it. I know that. But if there's ever a version of the future where you could forgive me, even a little, I'd wait for it. I'd wait forever. I listened to it twice. Then I deleted it. Because here's the thing. I wasn't angry anymore. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need her to suffer. But I also didn't need her apology to move forward. I already had. I'd made peace with the fact that she chose another life. That she gambled everything we had for a version of herself that only existed in hotel rooms and flirty texts. And now that version was gone. She was left with the life she built from its ashes. No man, no friends, no foundation, just her and the choices she made. And I was nowhere in that equation anymore. I imagine her coming home to silence. No music, no warm lights, no half-made dinners or dumb movies playing in the background. Just the echo of everything she lost. The version of herself she thought she'd find turned out to be a fantasy. And now reality had moved in, cold, overdue, and uninterested in excuses. The fall she didn't anticipate wasn't financial. It wasn't even romantic. It was internal. It was realizing she'd pushed away the one person who actually knew her, who saw her at her worst and still tried to love her through it. And now that person had vanished. Not in rage, but in calm, collected silence. The kind of silence you don't come back from. That's what she didn't see coming. Not the bills. Not the loneliness. Me. Gone.